Welcome to another interesting episode of the PAPShow on your trusted political platform from which you derive a great deal of advantage. Tonight on the PAPShow, we dive deeply into the crux of security situation in Nigeria. The country has, since its birth, seen, passed through, and dealt with gravely serious security situations, including the 30-month civil war, not forgetting coups and counter-coups at different times. Indeed, the country's insecurity crisis has evolved beyond terrorism. What began with Boko Haram 16 years ago has fragmented into multiple fronts. Today, Nigerians across this country face banditry, farmer-herder clashes, kidnappings, ethno-religious violence, separatist agitations, and state-enabled impunity that puts the terrible icing on the cake. The ethno-religious fault lines deepen insecurity, weak intelligence coordination, politicization of security appointments, a failing justice system, and state-level complicity or inaction have all contributed to a fragile, combustible national reality. This is the PAPShow, and I am Umar Isa Dandago. Thank you for joining us tonight on the PAPShow. To help us unpack and digest Nigeria's current insecurity issues, we have with us tonight Dr. Kabir Adamu of Beacon Intelligence and Security, who brings strong insights into Nigeria's security architecture over the years. Dr. Adamu will help us probe the roots of Nigeria's unending insecurity and ethno-religious crisis. Thank you so very much, and how utterly delighted I am to see you face to face finally after spending many years doing virtual interviews and talking on the phone.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine too. I'm quite delighted to be here. This is my inaugural outing, as it were, in your studio. I'm really delighted that it's with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's also an honor, a huge one, to be able to host you for the very first time here on PAB. Let's now head straight to the talking business. Nigeria's Defense Chief General Christopher Musa has recently called for the country's borders with its four neighbors to be completely fenced in order to curb the entrance of armed groups amid the escalating insecurity. I mean, do you agree with this call from our nation's top soldier?
Yeah, so it looks to me that the entire security structure in the country is not being strategic. This call appears to be a knee-jerk reaction to a challenge. Find a place to grow is because we already have internal security challenges. So the assumption that if we create a border, it would solve the problem. No, I do not think that. So that's number one, the assumption. Number two is the reality. We are looking at a border line of around 4,000 kilometers. Now,
all of them,
the entire land border that Nigeria has is around that 4,000 kilometers. The biggest with two countries, Cameroon, which is about 1,600 kilometers, and then with Niger, which is about 1,400 kilometers. Now, if you look at the terrain cuts across very difficult, natural creations, deserts, mountains, in some places even water. So constructing a fence in those locations is going to be extremely challenging. Now, if we also look at the financial commitment that is required to construct a fence, I don't think Nigeria has that money. It took the US per kilometer around $2 million per kilometer to construct the fence it constructed between the US and Mexico. And that's just the hard component of the fence. If you want the fence to be a security tool, you have to put surveillance facilities, you have to put several other things to now make it a security facility. So that 2 million can reach up to 5 million US dollars per kilometer of the fence. Now multiply that by the 4,000 kilometers that I've mentioned. So it doesn't look like it's a feasible demand. However, what we would have advised is for a strategic approach. Now, there are places where constructing a fence along the border would be a good consideration. But beyond that, the primary consideration is that the military is not, when you look at the security architecture, there are 29 ministries, departments, and agencies that are responsible for security. The military is not responsible for security of our borders. At the moment, it is the Nigerian Immigration Service. But there is also a challenge. The customs has a responsibility for border protection. But then the customs at the moment is, if I'm right, either in the Ministry of Finance or in the presidency. Now, that does not give it the security, mandate, as it were. Where we see the customs more as a revenue-generating institute instead of a security institute. So I think that's another challenge that perhaps the Chief of Defense Staff did not notice. We need to move customs to perhaps a ministry that has responsibility for security. As an example, Ministry of Interior, so that together with immigration, the responsibility for managing our border would now be. And then the next point I want to mention is the feasibility of a physical border is not, when you look at the advantages, is not commensurate with the using technology, such as surveillance technologies. Drones can be used, satellite can be used, that are less expensive, like the physical construction of the border, that will give us the advantage. And now tied to that is the need for rapid response. Because you are constructing the border to prevent bad elements from coming in. So even if you have a border and the bad elements can come and put a bomb and destroy the bomb, then you will not have served your purpose. But what if you now have surveillance capabilities that are able to detect the bad guys when they are coming towards the border, and then you now have a response capability? So this is the kind of mindset that I'm hoping our leaders, including the CDS, will approach this matter from. It's not just about constructing a fence, it's about managing the challenge. And what is the challenge? The perception that bad elements are coming from outside the country.
Very good context and background to this issue, and that's why I've allowed you to land. But one of the arguments that the CDS has looked at is the possibility of this project. He has been going around talking about Pakistan building a wall between the country and Afghanistan, on its border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and also the Saudis also did on their border with Iraq. And since those countries have got it right, don't you think it's also very much possible for Nigeria to also get it right?
So the assumption that it is because they constructed borders, fences in their borders with, in the case of Pakistan with Afghanistan or India, the case may be, and Saudi Arabia with its neighbors, that is why there's an improvement in security. No. Again, we need to interrogate that concept. Fences can help, but they can only help if we have the ingredients that I mentioned.
The surveillance technology.
Exactly.
He too has been also
response capability.
But
beyond that, the point I made earlier on, which is I think absolutely important, it is not the role of the military to protect our borders. That argument should be coming from either the Ministry of Interior or from the customs.
So he's making a wrong call, or he's interfering in somebody's work?
So it's not, I wouldn't blame him, because it's the legacy of our military era that has put that responsibility on the military. He's trying to solve a challenge, and because nobody else is doing it, he's now calling for us to do it.
Which means he deserves some accolades, some applause.
Yes, but two wrongs do not make a right. We need to sit back and correct some of these errors within our national security arrangement. I gave the example of the customs and all of that. So yes, he is, because no one else is saying it, that's why he's doing it. But then even let's interrogate that. Recently, the Minister of Interior actually made that call. I can't remember what forum it was, but he was invited to a forum and he did speak about it. He talked about border security, asked that the budget for the immigration service is too little, it should be increased, and all of that. So there's somebody actually making that call, even though from different perspectives.
It's about budget. The funding is too little, too small to take care of that. Do you think he has a point that the budget should be upped?
Only if there is enough like interrogation and auditing. if you continue to increase security budget without the kind of oversight that is necessary to ensure the monies are used for what they are meant for, then what we'll have is a situation where we're using basket to fetch water.
Okay.
The money will just be filtering. At the moment, security enjoys the highest budgetary provision, more than any other sector in the country, almost about 6.5 trillion naira. Health has about 1 trillion naira. Education also has about 1 trillion naira. So we're giving security a lot of money, but we're not seeing the results. So unless,
as a security expert, do you think, okay, the budget should be downsized,
no,
should be reduced,
I'm just
since
saying,
it is not effective, it is not serving the purpose?
I think there are leakages within the system, so we need to block those leakages. That's the major point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Number one, block the leakages. Number two, prioritize key projects. It is unfeasible, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, that today our military is still moving around in soft-skin vehicles when they're in a war, actually. But then meanwhile, you have, a so-called university built in Burute, in Biu rather, for the military. It's a misplaced priority. If you also go to command centers, you see some ridiculous things. You see swimming pools, you see, lawn tennis courts and all of that. Those are misplaced priorities. If you are in a war situation, first off, increase the number of personnel. Then the protection kit they need, provide it for them. Yes, the other components like the welfare, all of these things I mentioned are other welfare for command and control. They are important, but they don't come before the protection of your troops. So budget is important, increasing the amount, but let's block those leakages. Let's also make sure the amount of money we're spending are going to the priority areas and not to areas that I feel are not priority.
Okay, there's a lot of complaints about the troops in our ports, on the borders and other places, those other violence-ridden places, areas, not properly taken care of. Yeah, not properly given what they are supposed to, like the tools, the equipments, the weapons, and so on and so forth, to fight those terrorists. And that's on the one hand. On the other, there's this issue of recruitment. Which one do you think is more important, between recruiting more soldiers, more security personnel, and also like equipping those ones, taking care of those ones who are already serving?
In modern warfare, equipping is probably more important than numbers. The effectiveness of the small number that you have is better than if you have a huge number that are not effective. So there's what is called the light force. A light force is a small force that have enough equipment that are able to deploy speedily to locations. So given the landmass of Nigeria, we need to have a light force that is able to deploy within maximum 7 to 15 minutes. So let's say the base, we can't have military bases in every local government in Nigeria. It's impossible. But out of the 774 local governments, we need to simulate incidents and have a situation where within 7 minutes, our military or whatever cyber security force can deploy to that area to prevent an incident once it's happening. We need to simulate that. And so that's kind of what I hope the coordinators of our national security arrangement would attempt to do. Map out the 774 local governments, see where we currently have military formations, and then do a simulation exercise and see how speedily it would take the nearest military formation to deploy to the farthest location where we don't have the military formation, both in the daytime and at night. Let's not forget that the equipment for military operations in daytime are very different from military operations in the night. Likewise, in rainy environments, in forest environments, and all of that. So that's the kind of mentality I'm hoping that our leadership of our security sector will approach national security from.
Yeah, definitely. These are very, very interesting points, and technology can definitely serve this purpose, especially now with the advancement of AI, as experts are talking about. Now let's move on. Aren't we missing the root cause, the point? Has any country, in your own assessment and research and whatever, ever dealt with insecurity while most of its people citizens are bedeviled with terrible poverty?
So I agree with you totally that should be the beginning point. Even though there is this theory that says it's a case of which comes first, the egg or the chicken.
Yeah. The egg and chicken argument, chicken and egg argument.
Which comes first?
Yeah.
Some would say we need to contain the violence first. Without containing the violence, you can't improve on the economy. And I kind of agree with that. Because right now, people can't go to their farms. Herders have been, separated from their herds through cattle rustling. Name them. Markets are closed in most parts of northern Nigeria. So the argument is perhaps contain the violence so that the environment for growth and development is provided. And I kind of agree with that. I think we need to first contain the violence by increasing the capacity of our security forces, and then holding them accountable. That is one area that I think is critical. Let's hold them accountable. Ask them what they want, give them that thing that they want, and then give them a timeline. I would say nothing less than 6 months. Give them a 6-month timeline. After we've given them what they want, and demand that they address these issues. Failure to do that, we change all of them.
Another interesting side of the story is some people believe that one of the causes of insecurity in Nigeria is political corruption. I don't know that it makes sense to attach the two. Do you see any correlation?
Yes. One of the drivers of insecurity in Nigeria is definitely political, the weaponization of violence.
Okay.
Anyone who is kind of interested in a deeper understanding of this, last year, I think around, I can't remember the exact month, but the current DG of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, was invited to an event in Nigeria, and she presented, and the topic was actually and she stated clearly that there is enough evidence to indicate and suggest that there is a weaponization of violence by the political class to achieve their objectives. And this is visible. If we go back into history, around cycles of elections, starting from as far back as, let's say, in fact, almost all the elections, the ruling party would want to use victory to say they've been making progress in managing the security challenge, while the opposition would want to show that the party in power did not do well in security. So there is enough evidence that indicates that there are instances where the politicians actually fund security events to show that the ruling party is weak in certain areas. A good example is the non-state armed groups. And when I say non-state armed groups, I mean a lot of groups. There could be the criminal ones, such as the terrorist one, the Jamaat al-Ahli al-Dawlat wal-Jihad. If you look at their history, how they started, they actually had a political affiliation. The gangs that exist in virtually all parts of northern Nigeria, is it the Ensake, Enshila, and whatever, if you look at their history genealogy, there was a political element. Yes. Someone within the political class funded them and kind of controls them. So there is enough evidence to show that in certain instances, they actually trigger events, to achieve a political objective. So yes, politics and the lack of it is sometimes responsible for the security circumstances.
And this brings us to the next question, which is very much related to what you have just said. You've previously been warned, of course, certainly about the privatization of security in Nigeria, with state and non-state actors funding militia groups and local vigilantes. Are we on the verge of legitimizing anarchy as government or governance?
So yes, the call for self-defense makes me extremely worried, especially where we have identity-based conflicts. By identity-based conflicts, I mean conflicts between groups that are different, whose interests are essentially different. A good example is the farmer-herder violence in north-central Nigeria mainly, and of course other parts of Nigeria. Now, where you have those types of conflicts, and then you call for self-defense, the circumstances that we have is a continuous desire for weaponization. Vigitalism would become the order of the day. Weaponization would be also the order of the day. And this is in an environment where already we have enough weapons in circulation. Don't forget that because of the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, we had to create a center for small arms and light weapons, which is domiciled in the Office of the National Security Advisor, that is attempting at the moment to mop up the excess weapons in circulation. And then we now want to add to that. Now, the danger of that is that there will be more criminality. The usage of those weapons, especially where we don't train the bearers the way we should train them, would see more of it. And then let's also imagine the situation. Look at what happened in Mangu in Plateau State recently, where travelers who had left Zaria for a wedding were, ambushed and they were killed. Now imagine if those people who killed them had more weapons. So where you have identity-based conflicts like the type that we have in Nigeria, and then you promote self-defense, the danger would be anarchy. For it to be more than anarchy. At the moment, the state fragility index in Nigeria, we're I think at number 15 or number 16 in the national index.
And that is alarming?
It is alarming because the higher you are, the less your fragility index. Okay. The lower you are, the more your fragility index. If we're at 15, 16, in the global ranking of all countries, so only countries like Syria, Iraq, and the others are worse than
Nigeria.
Yes. Okay. So we need to pay attention to these issues. The more we weaponize, the more the likelihood that our fragility would.
But some people would say, let's address the root cause of that issue that has forced people to take up arms to protect themselves. If not, then
the root cause is bad governance.
So let's address it. How can we address this?
Our elections.
We've seen cycle of elections since.
No. We need to pay attention to credible elections. We're not doing that at the moment.
2015 was said to be one of the freest and fairest elections in Nigeria, and still nothing has happened in terms of security. Okay, you don't seem to agree with this.
No.
I say one of the freest and fairest.
The fact that we just need to improve on our elections. Let the average look at the voter turnout during our elections is alarming, and it's reducing increasingly. And the simple reason is security is one of the reasons. People don't feel safe, but the other reason is a lot of people don't see. They can't correlate their going to the polling booth to vote with the outcome.
Yes, their votes, they see like their votes don't make a difference. And that is why some of them have even burnt down their own voters. PVCs.
Yeah. So until we change that, where the average Nigerian who is eligible to vote is able to see that his vote will count, then I think. But
the question is, who can change? Who can bring this change you're talking about?
So, the onus at the moment is on the electoral umpire, which is INEC. But then we also know that INEC can only do so much. Some of the changes that are required in our electoral act actually require constitutional amendment. So a synergy between INEC, the electoral umpire, our National Assembly, and to an extent the presidency, because at the end of the day, whatever these two do must be signed by the president. So it must be a conscious effort, intentional effort between INEC, our legislature, and then the presidency. Nothing short of an election that is credible will give us the results that we want.
Before we go on a short break, I would like to pick your brain on this issue of the clashes, the attacks that we've seen in Benue State. Recently, the nation has seen a resurgence of unrest in the Middle Belt, mainly Benue and Plateau, as you've talked about. And we have seen in Benue State about 200 people were killed by quote-unquote yet to be identified attackers, killers. Some say it is herdsmen. Some say these are terrorists. Barrister Bukati has a theory that this is terrorism and we have to call it
I don't agree with him at all, and I'll explain why I don't agree with him.
So are we witnessing something more sinister here? Is this political or what?
So let's take a step back, because as an expert, I always like to interrogate situations. Okay. And I don't mean in any way to minimize what is happening in North Central Nigeria. But if we're going to rank fatalities, Benue ranks as number 5 in terms of fatalities as at May this year. in terms of fatalities.
And number 5, is it higher or
lower?
Okay.
So my point is there are states. Borno State is number 1 in terms of fatalities in the country, followed by I think Zamfara, then Katsina, and then I think Niger State. Then Benue comes number 5.
Okay.
Plateau comes around number 9. So why am I starting with this opening remarks? For some reasons, we have focused on the situation in Benue. Yes, it is alarming. It is worrisome.
200 people.
And no, so that's another thing.
Okay.
Recently, the Office of the Inspector General of Police put out a statement that yes, they've arrested I think about 20 suspects, but that they've only been able to verify about 60 or thereabout deaths. So the police itself is contesting the number of deaths.
So who is making the numbers up?
Well, going by the statement by the police, it's likely from the community.
Okay.
Now, whether it's true or not, again,
and why would they do that?
I don't want to be misquoted.
Yeah.
I don't mean in any way to minimize the situation in Benue State. It is condemnable.
Water it down.
It is bad. And as a citizen and as a lover of life, I condemn the killing of anyone.
Okay.
But I am trying to make a point that there is an attempt to highlight the situation in Benue over and above the killings in other parts of the country. I just mentioned to you, and I have a database, and even you mentioned Bukarati.
Yes, he says it's terrorism, and we have to treat it as such.
I don't agree it's terrorism.
It walks like terrorism.
As long as Nigeria is concerned.
It talks like terrorism, and it kills like terrorism. He says
as long as Nigeria is concerned, we have a Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act, which specifies what is terrorism. And it does not allow anyone outside of the Attorney General of the Federation, even him, he does not have the power. It's a competent court of jurisdiction that has the power to declare any act in Nigeria. We are not a lawless society.
What if it fits the definition of terrorism?
Then someone from within the state or from within us, I should send a petition to the Attorney General of the Federation, who would look at the merit of the petition and go to a competent court of jurisdiction and declare the act as terroristic. Now, more importantly, is who is the actor?
Okay.
Because just declaring the act as terroristic does not solve the problem. We have to identify the actor and then make sure that actor is entered into what is called a sanctions list that is maintained by the Office of the Attorney General. For information, under TPPA, Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act, there is a sanctions committee that has membership of the Attorney General and all the security organizations within the country. So they're the ones who would look at the petition, agree that the petition is what. So if Bukarati feels strongly that what is happening in Benue is terroristic, he should write a petition under the TPPA Act to the Attorney General and urge him. If he doesn't, then the Attorney General of the Benue State should do that.
Should do what? Should write the petition or declare it as terrorism?
He doesn't have the power under the only even the Attorney General of the Federation does not have the power. When the state Attorney General writes to the federal Attorney General, they, after looking at the merit of the petition, will now go to a competent court of jurisdiction. It is the competent court of jurisdiction that will now declare that the act was terroristic and that the actor is a terrorist. Now, what that does is it now empowers the apparatus of state to take action on the actor. It means all our security agencies will now start monitoring the actor. They would not just arrest the actor, but if the actor is running a bank account, there are so many things that.
Unfortunately, these actors have not yet been identified, and so some of the things that you've just talked about cannot be possible. Tracking, monitoring, observing, surveillance, and so on and so forth.
So this is the challenge of our reality, and we are not holding our security agencies accountable. We started this conversation,
and maybe Bukati is right by calling it terrorism. He's holding them accountable, at least verbally on air, live on TV.
No. The danger of what he did is we don't know who the actors are. And I don't want to open a Pandora's box, but allow me to open it. It is on record that the Chief of Defense Staff stated in categorical terms that the community where the killings occurred harbored the criminals, fed them, in his words, gave them women, and that the community also used a false incident to change, to make the military in that community go to another location before the attack occurred. So what is that telling you? There is more to this story than we know. And if the chief of defense staff, who incidentally visited that location before he made that statement, and he made it on 3 platforms that I had. He made it during a conference to mark his 2-year anniversary. He made it on 2 TV networks. So it's not a case of him being misquoted.
It's too complicated, more complicated than we think.
Exactly. And the onus is on our security agencies to use intelligence to determine what exactly happened. People were killed, no doubt, but who did the killing? Now, even if it were, irrespective of who it was, by now, we should be able to have pictures of have you seen one picture of the attackers?
Unfortunately, there is even a report hinting that DSS wrote a letter and then nothing was done. Passed it.
And there's another heinous report on social media by an influencer suggesting that the military was complicit in the attack. So
what's the end game? What would they benefit?
Exactly.
That's the question.
Why I brought
what if it's a conspiracy theory? I mean,
So the danger of allowing conspiracy theories and this situation when we, as a country, we've not used technology, we've not used the intelligence capabilities that we have to determine and to arrest the perpetrators, is that it allows this type of conspiracy.
Okay, it is not terrorism. One traditional leader called it a genocide.
And he was completely wrong. As a conflict expert, genocide is defined in clear terms. There must be the objective to wipe out a particular race, and it must be by a group that has professed to do that. Now, the situation in Benue does not.
Is it an ethnic cleansing?
So, I mean, if you say ethnic cleansing, it would reach, to an extent, the element of genocide. Now, the question is, if it's ethnic cleansing, who is behind it? We've just agreed that we don't know the actors. The general perception out there is by others. But I challenge you, and I would even support you to do that. Invite any of the Fulani associations. There are 42 of them, and they would explain to you how they themselves are victims. It's just that yes, it's
same
just that
thing
yes,
in Benue.
Yes.
One Christian leader was testifying in the US and was calling the people, the perpetrators of the attack, as Fulani, quote unquote Fulani jihadists.
And just recently, on another TV platform, an international one actually, another clergyman from Benue State actually repeated that same thing. And I think this was just last week.
And
so the theory,
like the labeling, the categorization of this as Fulani jihadists makes you feel uncomfortable as a Fulani man.
So just seated here in the last how many minutes, we've talked about 3 terminologies for describing the issues. You started by saying Bukartia said it's terrorism. Now you spoke about
genocide.
You talk about ethnic cleansing. So that's the danger. We need to identify the actors, use intelligence to understand what motivated them, and then to come to a conclusion by arresting the perpetrators and their sponsors, and then punishing them irrespective of their ethnic affiliation, their religious inclination, and their political association. If we don't do that, then we allow this danger to continue. And it worries me that Mr. President only gave a verbal directive when he asked the Inspector General of Police and the Chief of Defense Staff, why haven't they made any arrest? I'm hoping that verbal directive is being followed up by the instruments of state to demand in very clear terms, with a timeline, to say, produce with incontrovertible evidence. I emphasize that every Nigerian knows this, that when there is pressure on the police, they sometimes just go out and arrest anyone and say these are suspects. No, we want incontrovertible evidence. In today's world, you can't produce incontrovertible evidence. because it's a public forum, I don't want to speak too much.
Definitely. We are running out of time. Definitely, Dr. Kabir Adamu. I'm going to ask you the last question, but I do hope that Barrister Abdullah Bukarti is currently watching this interview to be able to defend his side of the argument. And this is a very interesting debate that we're going to have to make for the betterment of the nation. We are going on a short break. When we come back, the conversation will continue. I'm going to ask you about the Israeli-Iranian war that has taken place for the past 2 weeks or so. This is the PAP Show. I'm Umar Isa Dandago. We've been talking to Dr. Kabir Adamu, the CEO of Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited here in Nigeria. When we come back, the conversation continues.
Take a seat on the Political Advantage platform for real conversations about Nigeria by Nigerians. Follow our live stream across these channels and learn how it all affects you. Every Sunday, you have a chance to stay ahead by staying engaged and informed. Tune in to the Political Advantage platform to share in real conversations that matter to you.
Welcome back. This is the PAP Show with me, Umar Isa Dandago, and my guest tonight is Dr. Kabir Adamu of Beacon Intelligence and Security Limited here in Nigeria. On this second half, we take a look at the world's most attention-generating story of recent memory. On the 13th of June this year, 2025, Israel launched a wave of spectacular attacks on Iran with the full intention of decapitating the Ayatollah's nuclear power and capability. And Tehran was left with no option but to strike back with all it got at its disposal. Barrages of missiles were able to penetrate the Israeli Iron Dome to reach places like Tel Aviv and Haifa. Now, there is a fragile ceasefire in effect after the US attacked Iran, and Tehran responded by attacking the US military base in Qatar. Both the warring parties, i.e. Iran and Israel, claim victory. So what's next? Will Iran give up its nuclear program? If no, how Israel is going to respond in the future? By negotiating? Well, we'll talk about this right now with Dr. Kabir Adamu. Briefly, what's your reading of the situation now?
I mean, overall, my worry is the impact this will have on multilateralism. Both countries, especially Israel, disregarded the several platforms that exist for multilateralism. Let's not forget that Israel did not sign up to the NPT Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. Iran, on the other hand, signed up. It was compliant. It allowed access to its nuclear site, and of course, over time, there have been questions on its, transparency, including the IAEA sometimes, complaining about Iran's intention. But repeatedly, Iran has maintained that its nuclear technology is for peaceful purposes and not for military.
Right before the attack, Tulsi Gabbard, the national
security director, national security in the US,
definitely said that Iran was in compliance with IAEA,
and there was no evidence that Iran was near, possessing nuclear offensive capabilities. But then Trump kind of ridiculed her and said it's not true, and then later she recalibrated and said there is evidence to suggest that Iran. So having said that, point I'm making is, on the one hand, you have one country that is compliant with multilateral provisions. Then you now have Israel that is not compliant and now wants to prevent that other country from, quote unquote, having access to peaceful nuclear technology. So the danger is multilateralism. The world, especially countries who are on the fringes, who have, quote unquote, complied to multilateral platforms, including the UN, the United Nations Security Council, IAEA, the NPT, and several other platforms, will now say if those platforms cannot protect them in the manner that they did not protect Iraq and prevent the attack, because let's not forget, I think about 500 or 600 people died in the course of the 9-day or thereabout war between Israel and Iran. So no country will want to lose 500 or thereabout of its citizens. So if multilateralism cannot protect, most countries will abandon it and just go for bilateralism or whatever other available option. And for me, that is the danger of the situation that we're in. The war has ridiculous where the current order.
Yeah.
Good. I think the good thing is at the end of the day, the role played by Qatar, and of course the US led to a ceasefire, even though it's fragile.
Yeah.
We're not sure how it will play out, but the danger is what next?
Yeah.
If multilateralism appears not to be effective any longer, if countries can flout provisions that exist in multilateral agreements and nothing is done to them, then that's the danger for the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that almost all these multilateral platforms were created after the Second World War. And the reason for their creation is to prevent the Third World War. If we're now ridiculing those platforms and making them look useless, then we're on the fringes of a Third World War.
Okay. Double standards, bias, prejudice, selfish interests, and so on and so forth are one of the problems, or among the problems bedeviling the world. And this is one of the reasons why experts in international relations have issues with the theory of realism and so on and so forth. We are absolutely running out of time, and I personally have interest in this conversation, and I hope very soon you will be able to come back and expand on it, how it affects Africa and Nigeria in particular. Final question: if you had the ear, if you had the ear of the president, or if you were the president of Nigeria, how would you solve these Nigerian problems?
Well, I'm not the president. we have a president, and he's...
This is an unlikely condition?
He's on seat. If I had the opportunity and I have his ear to advise him, I'll tell him to, Your Excellency, improve on security sector governance. Our constitution has a lot of provisions for security sector governance, and those who marshaled out the constitution have a reason. As an example, the National Security Council is not just there for being their sake. It's a council that is meant to assist in security sector governance. It hasn't been sitting, and we've been having major public security challenges. So let's start with that, Your Excellency. Convene the National Security Council in the manner that it's supposed to be. All the members should be called, and the president is at liberty to also call anyone who he feels can come and brief the council. Start with that. Then number two, hold members of the security sector accountable. Mr. President, it's not enough for you to publicly ask why wasn't any suspect arrested in the case of Benue State. Follow it up with timelines, and where a failure to meet those timelines, do the necessary thing, which is either redeploy them or in certain instances change them if they are political appointees. And then number three is to decentralize security. It could be what is being discussed at the moment, state policing, or it could be any element of decentralization of security. So we're giving governors security vote. Put that into an auditable platform where the money that goes to them is also being audited. At the moment, it's not being audited. And then, of course, I must say this, even though people would think it's not related to security, appoint ambassadors, especially to strategic countries around us. They will play a role in enhancing our security.
By gathering intelligence that could...
so many things.
That could help, curtail
so many things that they can do. Let's appoint them.
Another interesting topic to look at, and we hope we will get the Minister of Foreign Affairs to come on the table and defend their own side of the story and talk about this issue. Finally, security is not just about boots on the ground. It's about trust, justice, intelligence, and leadership that see beyond tribe and tongue. Today's conversation has reminded us that until Nigeria confronts the roots of its insecurity, the politicization, the prejudice, and profiting from chaos, peace will, God forbid, remain a distant idea. Thank you so very much indeed, Dr. Kabir Adamu, for being on the show. It's been a pleasure learning a lot from the enormity of your knowledge in this area.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me as well.
On behalf of everyone that has contributed to the production of the show, my name is Umar Isa Dandago, saying goodbye and see you very soon.